It is 11 o'clock. Welcome back to Three-Man Front. Hour number one, we kind of recapped last night, New Heights podcast with Taylor Swift and the Kelsey brothers. Also, the University of Michigan is expecting to hear from the NCAA officially tomorrow what their penalty is going to be on the Connor Stallions case. We heard from you, the listener, 1-800-239-WJOX. We'll go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama momentarily and talk to Rodney Orr, get his thoughts on scrimmage number one last weekend, scrimmage number two coming up on Saturday. Artec Tractor in Jasper is having a sale on all their fluids and filters from now until the end of September. That is on all oil filters and air filters, also all engine oil and hydraulic oil. That is 15% off all of those items. Locally owned specialists in mowers and tractors. Call Jeremy. Go see Greg and the guys there. They're going to take care of you at Artec Tractor, just north of Jasper on Highway 5. They've got tractor brands like Mahindra, Bobcat, everything for large home acreage, small homesteads to large farms, hunting plots. Mower brands like Toro, Cub Cadet, Gravely, Bobcat, Spartan. Residential to commercial grade, more brands and better selection than those big box stores. I'm excited because this weekend, in between the rain, I'm going to get on my zero turn from Artec Tractor, and I'm going to take care of the business in the backyard because it's getting high because of all this rain. I need a nice low cut as I head into the football season.
If we're going to put that golf course in.
Yes. Landrum's designing a couple of holes in my backyard. Yep. He's already kind of mapped it out. So elevated green up on the plateau. That's going to be beautiful. But thanks to Artec Tractor, I can make that happen. Large selection of used heavy equipment, all of that. Go by and see them just north of Jasper. Highway 5, Artec Tractor.
The course is going to be called the Moat at Pat Smith Farms.
I love that. Love that. Can we get that trademarked before Lamar Jackson trademarks it?
Yes. We'll get that done by the end of the day. Rodney Orr of TiderInsider joining us, his weekly visit here on Three-Man Front and the Higginbotham Hotline. Happy Thursday, Rodney. How are you? I'm guessing that you were tuned in like 1 point something million other people watching the Taylor Swift podcast last night.
I'm sorry. I had no idea.
That was
a perfect answer.
That was the perfect answer. That's what we were looking for.
I had no idea. I really did not.
That's okay. That is not a problem at all. All right, let's go back before we kind of talk about what you expect this weekend. Just some of the highlights, in your opinion, from last Saturday's scrimmage inside Bryant-Denny Stadium based on your intel.
Yeah, I think the one thing a couple things that really stood out was just from the people I talked to. And, some of them obviously played in the NFL, so they've got a really keen eye. And the things that they pointed out was just the command from Ty Simpson. That was certainly something that built a lot of confidence. Just the way he handled himself, he made some plays, didn't turn the ball over. There were no turnovers in the scrimmage. That was really key. But just the command and the maturity that he showed certainly built some confidence. But also the offensive line. I think that based on the things we heard, that they really feel like the feeling is that this offensive line can be really good, take a big step this year. And that they initially in the scrimmage, they pretty much controlled the defensive line. But, with that said, the defensive line did tighten up against the run and started to develop a little bit of a pass rush. So it was, as DeBoer said, a little bit of give and take up front.
Speaking of give and take, we've heard a lot of reports about the lack of turnovers, which is impressive throughout fall camp. Is that a concern? If I'm playing devil's advocate, is that a concern for Kane Womack and the defense?
Yeah, I had to kind of laugh about that because that's one of their goals, right? Is to create turnovers defensively. That's one of their core goals that they want to accomplish and achieve. And that, they didn't turn the ball over in that scrimmage in terms of the defense. So, it works both ways, but it is good to see, of course, when you see your quarterbacks, especially the youthful guys, they're all inexperienced, even Ty. And to be able to protect the ball the way they did, I think that kind of overrides the other, in my opinion.
The backup quarterback at any college is the most popular quarterback, especially if quarterback number one struggles a little bit. So my question is, as of this moment, who do you believe will be quarterback number two behind Ty Simpson?
Well, what I would think is this, and again, just my opinion would be that if they got into a game and someone else had to play, let's say early part of the season, I would say that Austin Mack would get first crack. That's what I would say. Now, how long that leash would be, how many series, I guess it would just all depend. But I think they would probably go Mac first, and then if need be, maybe Keelan Russell gets in the game. But again, so if you want to put it that way, I would say right now I think Mac will probably stay in the pecking order at number 2, but I don't think that's like something that's extremely solid.
We know the wide receiving group, that room is uber talented, but there are guys that are relatively new or have not gotten a lot of playing time. Who are some of those emerging guys out of that wide receiver room, Rodney, that you're hearing about that could play a big factor in 2025?
Well, of course, I know most Alabama fans by now know about Isaiah Horton, clearly. I mean, he had a big year at Miami last year, the transfer. I think he's going to make a huge difference. I really do. I think his addition, he's physical, he's big, he's 6'4", he's 210, and he just makes big plays. I mean, he made big plays in the spring every scrimmage. He made a big play in this last scrimmage where he had a 50-yard touchdown reception. He just seems to be a playmaker and that big physical presence too. But also Rico Scott, he's really continues to take steps. And again, he's 6 feet, 200 pounds, plays really physical himself and fast, really fast. One of the fastest guys on the team actually. So I think Rico Scott's another guy. Cole Adams had some really bright moments in this last scrimmage. Had a couple of big plays, impressive catches. And again, we saw him last year, and he was sidelined the end of the year with the injuries that he had, but he's done really well in camp so far. And he's not really a new guy, but he's a guy that I think certainly has positioned himself to make more of a contribution. And we'll see with Latsier Brooks. I think if Latsier Brooks, he obviously he's been a little bit sidelined with a minor injury, hadn't been able to do much the previous week before the scrimmage. But I think he's dynamic. I think he's got a chance to, at some point, make a contribution. But those are some of the guys that I would say, other than Bernard and Ryan Williams, to really keep an eye on.
Rodney Orr joins us from TiderInsider as we're talking about scrimmage number 1 and scrimmage number 2 coming up on Saturday for the Alabama Crimson Tide. So, Rodney, let me ask you about the interior defensive line. That's a group that for many months you have talked about how Alabama needs to go out, be aggressive in recruiting. That might have been one area of concern that you shared with us over the past couple of months. How are they performing so far in fall camp? And I was told, and you could tell me I was wrong with this assessment, that at least in the first part of the scrimmage, the offensive line held their own really well against the defensive front. And it took a little while for that group to get kind of going there in the second half of the scrimmage to get that penetration and that depth in the backfield that Kane Womack and the rest of those coaches want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's pretty much kind of the story, that the offensive line early on was having their way, pushing them around a little bit, but the defensive line rebounded pretty well and came back and did a nice job of tightening up on the run. Again, I think they generated a pass rush, started to begin to generate a pass rush. I think there was 4 sacks, at least 4 sacks that we heard of in the scrimmage. So they got better as the scrimmage went along. But, again, I think when you look at that group, now let's keep in mind too, that James Smith, and I think he's the guy that could be a real difference maker this year up front. He did not participate, so he was out. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. But I think building some of the depth behind those first 3, behind James Smith and Keenan and L.T. Overton, I think with guys like Jordan Renaud and Keon Keeley and Edric Hill and Jeremiah Beeman. Now, again, Keeley and Renaud on the outside, but on that interior, some of those guys like Edric Hill and Jeremiah Beeman really have to step up. I think, Kelby Collins is another guy that he may play more of a bandit defensive end. It looks like he's actually lost some weight since the spring. But as a group, I think that those guys behind the first 3, they're going to be really key because you have to have that rotation up front. And a lot of those guys have potential. They've gotten bigger. They've gotten stronger. They just don't have a lot of experience.
Rodney, we talked about 2 phases of the game. We have not talked about the third. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being we are absolutely freaked out, special teams, how much of a concern is there for Kalen DeBoer and that staff?
Well, I mean, that's a good question because we were hearing some positive things about that. And then I think after the scrimmage, there's people that have expressed a little bit of concern about, both kicking, punting, and place kicking. I guess we'll just have to see. But Connor Talty was a guy that had a pretty good spring. I think they were pleased with the way he did the place kicking spring. Showed a strong leg, was pretty accurate with his kicks in the spring. And then I think that they were really pleased too with the Blake Dowd, the Colorado School of Mines transfer with the punting. I think that they thought he had a really good spring. And Alex Asperoff, one of the top punters in the nation last year as a high school player, of course, he's coming off a knee injury. He's in the mix as well, but there seems to be a little bit of concern right now, and there's not been a lot of discussion about it. I actually haven't heard a lot in terms of, either way, but other than there is some concern right now about how those guys will pan out.
Rodney Orr joins us from TiderInsider as we get ready for scrimmage number 2 for Alabama. For you, Rodney, what is the one area, or it could be a couple of areas, that you are honed in on the most in regards to the input and I guess the information that you're going to get from a group that you want to see some improvement in on the weekend?
Yeah, I always want to hear about the line of scrimmage. I mean, the offensive line as they continue to develop. And I think, Jaden Roberts was out at right guard this last scrimmage. And I know there was an injury that was holding him out, and to see if he's back, for this scrimmage. But just kind of how that, the offensive line continues to develop there. I know they were also really pleased with some of the depth spots there on the offensive line in terms of, Gino Vandermark had to step in, which we knew he could, but Olasa Lennon continues to make progress. He can play those multiple positions, tackle and guard. And I know they're really excited about those 2 young freshmen. We've talked about them before, left tackle Jackson Lloyd, right tackle Michael Carroll, guys that, young freshmen that are showing a ton of potential. So it looks like they could have some pretty decent numbers in terms of those guys developing in behind the first group. So I think that's really important, and continuing to see how this defensive line, progresses. I think that's really important. But also, I'll say this, Pat and Landrum, last year one of the issues we saw, I think, over the course of the season was the inconsistent play from week to week. You beat Georgia, you lose to Vanderbilt. You go out and you really look great against LSU, and you lay an egg against Oklahoma, those types of things. You just the inconsistent play. And I think even you had a really good scrimmage. I mean, there's a lot of people, that I've talked to that was at the scrimmage, and they said, really surprised about how well this scrimmage went. They protected the ball. They didn't make mistakes. Ty was in command, all of these things. So how do you bounce back in the scrimmage too? I mean, do you take that next step? The consistency, and I think all of that I think that can be an important part to develop that consistency throughout the season, which is what they're going to have.
Well, you can follow TiderInsider. Rodney will have an update. He'll have a report as soon as possible after the scrimmage concludes. He's got better sources than anybody when it comes to what's going on there inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. Rodney, always appreciate your time. Look forward to watching and reading your reports over the weekend, and we will catch up with you next week. And it's actually a game week in college football, so it should be exciting.
Can't wait. I appreciate it, guys.
Thank you very much, Rodney. Take care. That's Rodney Orr joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. All of our guests join us on that hotline. You deserve solutions that are built for you. Higginbotham is your one-source solution for insurance, financial, and HR services.
Well, you can join us at Mandu in downtown Homewood just in time for football season. You want to be looking your best, whether it's there in your man cave watching games at high school on Friday nights, maybe seeing an old high school flame, Larry from Homewood, or you're there enjoying tailgates on college football Saturdays. Mandu's going to have you looking great, feeling great, and the best part about Mandu, they know you're busy. It's a 15-minute workout because of the technology and the electrical muscle stimulation fitness. 15-minute workout, equivalent to 6 hours in a gym. Nobody has 6 hours. Well, I guess you do if you're a trainer or you maybe own the gym. But Mandu in downtown Homewood, your first visit is free. They'll put you through that workout, MANDUU.com to learn more. Always tell them Landrum from Jock sent you.
Coming up at the bottom of the hour, David Cutcliffe, former Ole Miss head basketball. Listen to me.
I bet he could coach it.
Yeah. Well, he played at, he was at, what was he, Banks High School?
Yeah. Huh?
Here in Birmingham?
I believe so.
Is that right?
Yeah, I know the Rutledge brothers. My dad played at Banks. Uncle played at Banks.
Yeah. He was a Jet.
Was it Shorty White? Was the head coach there one time?
Sounds right. I think that's right, isn't it? That David played at Banks?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Should we just ask him on the air and make it awkward?
Yeah.
I'll
we can do that. And then he went to Alabama. He got injured.
Mm-hmm.
who's going to play football for the Tide. Got injured, did not play. Started an incredible career coaching, including being Peyton Manning's quarterback coach at Tennessee, head coach at Ole Miss, head coach at Duke.
He attended Banks
High School.
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. Here in Birmingham. All right. He's coming up at the bottom of the hour. He did not coach basketball in college, just football. Now, that'd have been something if he had been on there with Coach K.
What do you think he could have done with Peyton Manning? Peyton, would he have been a 3-guard?
Yeah, I don't see him bringing the ball up.
Think about what he could have done with Daniel Jones. Basketball.
That's an athlete right there.
I'm talking lottery pick.
Yeah, no doubt. More three-man front on Jocks. This is three-man front on a Thursday.